Alright guys, today is 420, so I thought I'd show you guys how to make some pipes today. Alright, so to get started on making some pipes, we're going to need a few things to get started. First, you're going to want your handy dandy needle tool. You're going to need your wooden knife. You're going to want some slip and your paintbrush to apply the slip with. You're going to need a sponge and water, some clay, and you're also going to want a chopstick. If you don't have a chopstick, you could use something like a pencil or a wooden skewer or something. Preferably something wooden though, because we're going to be sculpting our pipes around this, and it tends to not stick to the clay as much, so when we go to pull off our piece at the end, it does come off pretty easily. So the first pipe that I'm going to show you guys is just a basic little chillum. So we're going to want to get some clay out to get started. I'm just going to grab, this is probably even too much, maybe about that much. And this is already wedged clay, so I'm not going to wedge it right now, but if your clay is not wedged, you definitely want to wedge it before you get started with this. So first off, I'm just going to roll out a little coil, kind of a fat little coil. Flatten the ends a little bit. I'd say probably something like that is pretty good to get started with. And now I'm going to take that handy dandy chopstick I was talking about, and this is basically going to create the tunnel that the smoke travels through in our pipe. So what you're going to want to do, find the center of that coil and gently just push through. You can twist it and push through at the same time to kind of get it to go evenly. And you definitely want to make sure you're pushing this in straight, because obviously if you start going at an angle, it might pop through out the side rather than out here. Just take your time with this. Gently push it through until it pops out on the other side. Alright. Just going to roll this out a little bit because I did mess up the shape a little bit as I was doing that. Here we have our coil on a stick, right? Doesn't look like much right now, but we're going to turn this into a chillum, I promise. So what you're going to want to do is grab another little piece of clay, probably about, a quarter of the size that you pulled out for your coil. Probably about that big. And I'm just going to roll it out, and then we're going to make this into a tiny little pinch pot essentially. So I'm going to use my little pinky to kind of press in that hole. And then I'm slowly going to open it up like that. The edges are cracking. Go ahead and take some water and just sponge it out. Alright, so something like that, small, cute little baby pinch pot. And what we're going to do is attach it here. So before we attach, we're going to need to slip and score. Take your needle tool, scratch all around here. You score it really nice in both directions. And you're going to do the same on the bottom of this guy here. I'm going to flatten this out a little bit. Alright, go ahead and scratch the bottom of your little baby pinch pot. Grab a paintbrush, get that both sides slipped up. Oh, hello, Luma. Let's put you over here. There you go. So what we're gonna do, you can push this down a little bit because we're gonna use the tip of this to go through our little pinch pot. So I'm going to take the tip, find the center of the little pinch pot, and again, just twist and push through. And once you get to this point, you can twist it in to get that to attach really nicely. And then once we are done with that, we can go ahead and take our wooden knife and start smoothing that in. Now, if you want this to look like one tube rather than a little pinch pot attached to the coil, you can go ahead and do a couple of things. One, you can take a little more clay, a little small little coil, about like that, and put it over the spot where we attached the baby pinch pot, and then smooth that in. Kind of press it in, and then smooth it in. And once that's all smoothed in, you can even kind of roll this out a little bit if you'd like. If you'd like to add any texture, you can totally go ahead and do that right now before we take this guy off. But there we've got our nice little tube. Flatten the bottom out a little if you want. I think I'm going to use this pen to add a little bit of texture all over this guy. For texture, you can seriously use anything at all. Or if you don't want any texture at all, that's also an option. I'm probably happy with that. Alright, so now I'm pretty much done with this guy. So what I'm going to do to take it off is just hold it nice and firm and slowly twist and pull this out. Should come out pretty easy. And if you have any clay clogging the hole in there, you can totally just take your needle tool, grab those little chunks, and then you can also even take your finger to just smooth out the roughness down in there. And there you have a cute little chillum. Alright, for our next pipe, we're going to do a little bit more of a classic shape, but essentially using the same methods we did for our chillum. So once again, go ahead and grab some clay. You're going to want a little bit more clay than last time. You're going to want to ball up your clay. And once again, we're going to make a fat coil. Just go ahead and just start rolling one out. I would say this thickness is pretty good. I definitely would not go any thicker than an inch, just because that could lead to, cracks or even explosions in the firing. But I'm about a little less than an inch thick here. I'm going to cut off the ends just so I have a nice flat surface to work with. For this one, I'm going to do more of like a rectangular shape, but you can feel free to leave it like this. So I'm going to go ahead and just flatten out one side and flip it over and do the other side until I kind of get this like rectangular shape kind of going on here. This is a little bit long for me, so I am going to cut off this end. Alright, so we've got this thick, almost 1 inch size coil that we're working with. For you, it could be any shape you want. I'm kind of doing a rectangle shape for this one. So again, I'm going to take my handy dandy chopstick, and now what we're going to do here is push this through. However, we're going to be impressing a little divot here afterwards, and that's going to be our bowl chamber. So we need to leave enough width here to leave space for the indent for the bowl. So for pushing this hole in, I would go slightly, like if this were halfway right here, I would go slightly a step down. So then that'll leave more space here for a divot for our bowl. So what I'm going to do, find that little spot right there, and just start twisting and pushing through. Again, you want to kind of do this as straight as possible. Might help to just have it laying on your table and keeping your chopstick parallel with the table. Or you can hold it in your hand. Whatever feels most comfortable is what you should do. Just keep going until you finally get through to that other side. So we are through. I'm gonna do this a little bit. Once you put this chopstick through your piece, you will notice that the shape of your coil will kind of stretch out a little bit because you are putting something through it. So go ahead and just reshape it a little bit if you'd like. So now I'm going to kind of mark this little spot right here. And now what you can do, you can literally just push in here if you'd like. However, that will start stretching out your shape a little bit because that clay has to go somewhere. If you'd like, you could also take a ribbon tool, a little loop tool like this guy, and kind of scoop some of it out. Be careful here because you don't want to go too deep and hit that chopstick. So go ahead, open this up, and remember, this is going to shrink. So make sure you're happy with the bowl size. Alright, just going to smooth that out a little bit. Now what we can do, now that we've got our bowl set, what we can do is take another handy dandy chopstick and press down in the very center of that bowl until you are touching the chopstick right here. So basically you just go straight down until you start hitting your chopstick, and that's how you know you're through. Now when you do this, you will be able to see how much space you have left before hitting this. So the bottom of my bowl is still pretty thick, which means I can dig this out a little bit more. And I mean, if you're like me, you're going to want a bigger bowl for more weed. Alright. So, again, this guy is going straight down and hitting my first chopstick. Alright. That was pretty good. Again, if you would like to apply any texture, you can totally go ahead and feel free to do that right now. I'm just going to leave this one as it is, but feel free to add whatever you would like. Once again, to pull this out, I'm just going to slowly twist and pull, taking my time. Alright. And again, if you have any small clay chunks clogging the hole, feel free to take your needle tool and just gently kind of pull them out. Looks good there. Looks good there. I'm just going to smooth this out a little bit. And just like that, we have a pipe with a carb ready. Alright guys, we're going to do one last pipe. So you're going to want to get about the same amount of clay that you had for the last one out. Maybe something like that. Go ahead and ball it up. And just like before, we're going to make this into a coil. This is a little bit long for what I need, so I'm going to go ahead and cut it off. Maybe about there. And cut this off so we've got a flat end to work with. Alright. So that is good to go. Gonna take our handy dandy chopstick. However, for this one, I don't want to poke all the way through because I don't want to carb over here. I want to put my carb on the side of this pipe. So what I'm gonna do, before I stick it into the coil, I'm going to kind of just measure it all the way to the end. And just take either a needle tool and make some little scratch marks. So you can take a pencil or marker or whatever and just mark the end of there so that when we poke the chopstick through, we know where to stop before pushing through the end of our coil. So I'm gonna go ahead, find the center point of our coil and just start twisting down. Again, you wanna make sure that you're twisting this in as straight as possible. And then you're going to want to just make sure that you stop once you get to those marks that we made earlier. So right there is where I'm gonna stop. And now for this one, I'm gonna do a little bit of sculpting on here. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna kind of do a more classic pipe shape. So for me, I'm going to kind of pinch around here to kind of separate the bowl area from the handle of the pipe. I'm just pinching and turning. To kind of make that bowl pronounced. And then for the handle, I'm going to keep on squeezing. If your clay starts to get a little dry, feel free to just add some water, smooth out those cracks. Kind of gonna round out this bowl area here instead of having a sharp edge. I'm just gonna smooth out some of these bumps with my finger. This is a little bit long, so I'm gonna go ahead and cut it off about there. Just pull that off. And then down here, I'm also gonna round this out. Feel free to just kind of take chunks off if you've got too much there. I'm just gonna round it out. And you can kind of start to see that classic phallic pipe shape coming along. Just tapping this to kind of round it out a little bit more in my palm. And I'm also just gonna wet my finger and just kind of smooth out some of these bumps and ridges. All right. I'm also just going to pick a side that I want to be the bottom and just kind of tap it so that it's flat and not rolling around. I hate pipes that just roll all over the table. All right. Now we can take another chopstick. And what we're gonna do is find the center of our bowl right here. We're just going to press that chopstick in until we meet with that first chopstick. Once you feel it pressing against that other chopstick, go ahead and take it out. And then what we can do here, you can either start opening this up with your fingers, or again, you can take your loop tool and just start carving it out a little bit. Right, while I was doing that, I accidentally filled in my hole, so I'm just going to take my chopstick again, press through until I feel that bottom chopstick. And after I did that, I can see that the base of my bowl can still be dug out a little bit more. So I'm gonna go ahead and just scoop a little bit more clay out. I'm gonna take my finger and dip it in some water just to kind of smooth this out a little bit. Take my chopstick, press that in again, just kind of space out that clay. All right. Now if you want to add a carb, we're going to do that. You don't have to add a carb, but I personally like to have one. Additionally, just for smoking purposes, I'm going to put it on the left-hand side because I prefer to hold the lighter in my right hand and then hit the carb with this hand. But if you're left-handed and you want it on this side, you can totally do it on this side. Does not matter. I'm going to take my pipe and I'm kind of going to eyeball where my chopstick is at, so it looks like it's about right there. So I'm going to go ahead, press this down, and just twist and press, and I'm just going to twist and press down until I feel it meeting with that chopstick again, which I do. And I'm going to pull that guy out. And there is that. Right, so now we've got our carb and our bowl. Now you can feel free to add any sort of textural design that you'd like. I'm gonna apply some little balls onto here. So I'm just gonna roll out a couple of little tiny balls. So normally when you're attaching two pieces of clay together, you do want to slip and score. Because these balls are so small, I'm just going to add a little bit of slip and press them in pretty good. But if you are worried about them falling off or anything like that, or if you're using larger pieces, different, bigger attachments, I would recommend scoring. I'm just going to slip these guys and kind of press them on. Alright guys, so once you are done applying your texture, you can go ahead and pull it off that chopstick. Just carefully grab it and twist and pull out. And again, if any of your holes are clogged at all, feel free to just grab your needle tool and get any chunks that are out of the way. Make sure that both your bowl hole and your carb hole are cleared. And you're good to go. Alright guys, so a couple last things. First, before you fire these, you definitely want to make sure these get completely bone dry because they are a little bit thick. I'd recommend keeping them covered in plastic for a day or two and then uncovering them and leaving them out to dry for about 5 days or so. Secondly, you can totally feel free to combine any of these methods to make your own awesome creation. Hope you guys enjoyed and happy 420.